everybody, Reverend Sam here, and it's Holy Week, and I wanted to get on here and share some things with you, kind of on a daily basis through Holy Week, see if we can encourage each other and I can encourage you. So yesterday we talked about Jesus just losing it, throwing everything out of the temple, and so we're going to talk about something else. What does he do next? What a great story. So we'll talk about that. Happy Holy Week. Here we go. So in this moment, in this story that we read here, right after Jesus throws the tables and throws the chairs and everything else, throws out all the merchants, he teaches. He gathers people and he teaches them a lesson. And so that's kind of what we're going to do here today. Because what the lesson that Jesus was trying to teach here was about authenticity. And what made him angry was that this situation, there was no authenticity. What they were really concerned about and what they were really focused on was charging people money, selling goods. And Jesus went without distraction, without any hesitancy, chased the people out of the building. Because he was very zealous about authenticity and the desire for people to have access to God and his love, to the presence of God. That's what the temple was all about. So he drove out these money changers, these merchants that were selling money. And it's still going on. There are still preachers and teachers and evangelists and so-called prophets out there who all they want is money, your money. What a crazy thing. I've noticed a number of pastors that I know are so focused on the fact that people are getting stimulus checks and they're making posts reminding people to tithe and to give money to their church now that they've got this extra money. Please, come on. So my question is, think about this. What would Jesus drive out of our own hearts, our own attitudes, our own minds? What gets in the way of us experiencing God's presence in our lives? It could be a lot of things. It could be materialism. It could be material things. It could be social media. It could be what's the next big thing to watch on Netflix or television or the news. Man, I love the news. I watch the news. It's crazy. I love watching the news. But it's distracting from the things that are spiritually important in our lives. So now we've come to Tuesday of Holy Week. And it's pretty intense. The story is far from over. And in the midst of all of the chaos, in the midst of all of the throwing of merchants out of the temple, and really what they were doing is they were in the temple getting in the way of people going into the temple. They wanted to stop you there and get your money before you walked in. Same thing happens today. Only the medium is television and social media. So in the midst of all that, Jesus takes time to teach truth. And we can learn a huge lesson from this moment. Even during chaos, even during crises, we need to listen. We need to hear the words of Jesus. And Jesus speaks to our confusion. He speaks to our misconceptions. He speaks to the misinformation that's out there if we will just listen. Even during times of chaos and crisis, we can still learn a huge amount from this. Jesus wants us to come to him and listen. Sometimes it's not what we want to hear. Sometimes it's not the things that we want to hear, but he speaks to us. It may not be what we want to hear, but I promise you this, it's what we need to hear. In these chapters that we're reading of the last week of Jesus, it's the religious leaders, the scribes, the priests, the elders, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, who gathered to hear what Jesus had to say. And for 3 years, Jesus had been proclaiming this new way of living and this new kingdom that was there in them. And they hated his message because he didn't build up the religious leaders. He didn't build up the power of these religious leaders. He didn't stand in the face of politics. So they began to question his authority and his teachings. I kind of picture it this way. It's a crowd of stuck-up people in fancy robes sitting on the outskirts of the temple and the cities, smirking and scowling and listening to him teach. They weren't there to genuinely listen. They wanted to trip him up. They wanted to expose him as a fraud. But don't just point our fingers at these religious leaders. Sometimes we do exactly the same thing. I want to be the one in charge. I want to be the one that's right and has all the answers. I want Jesus' message I preach his message so that it lines up with my own way of thinking and living. Thankfully, if you study and look at the life of Jesus, it's very different from that. Jesus shares with the people that would listen to him parables, stories, and lessons. And they might have seemed kind of disoriented and disjointed at times, but they were all pointing to this simple truth. They were all pointing to this simple truth that Jesus was trying to teach, the truth about himself. And he does this even when we get angry, when people get angry and frustrated because the life of Jesus contradicts the very life that you and I are living. Everything that Jesus taught called out the religious leaders, corrected people's thinking. The simple message of a simple carpenter, a simple, uneducated, itinerant rabbi was powerful and bold and beautiful. And Jesus was there. He was there even when they were too proud to accept it. He was there in the midst of their own pride. He was there and taught and loved even when people ignored his teachings and his life. He was there when people even killed his messengers. Contrary to the popular belief of his time, Jesus wasn't trying to overthrow Caesar. In fact, he even insisted that people pay their taxes. They didn't understand his message. They didn't understand his message of caring for others and loving others. You see, it was that message of care and love that exposed the hypocrisy of the religious leaders of his day. But before you and I join in on this and start condemning all the religious elite, preachers and teachers, we have to look at our own hearts. You see, Jesus wasn't just speaking to the scribes and the Pharisees and the elders. He's speaking to us, to our flaws and our failures, to our demands. He's speaking to our failure to love others like ourselves. He's speaking to our failure to love God with all of our heart, our soul, and our mind, and to love our neighbors. He's speaking to our own ability to ignore widows and orphans and the homeless. He's speaking to our own ability to measure people by us and them, to look at our LGBTQ brothers and sisters and point our fingers at them. He's looking at us. Today is a day where transgender people, believers, and our brothers and sisters that are transgender celebrate their revealing, their coming out. And we point our fingers at them because that just doesn't make sense. We don't get it. How can somebody do that? We point our fingers at those who love differently than we do, who worship differently than we do, who are of different faiths and different religions, and we don't get it, and we don't understand it, but we point our fingers at them and we criticize them. You see, we're doing the same thing as those religious leaders. But thankfully, because of Jesus, when we look at his words and his teachings, we still have hope. You see, he sat with the sinners. He sat with the drunkards. He sat with the prostitutes. He sat with the broken and the hurting. He sat with anybody that would hear his word. He drank with them. He ate with them. He walked with them. He hung out with a bunch of ragtag fishermen who probably cursed like you never heard before. That's the Jesus that I challenge us to follow. The religious leaders of his day sought to put him to death. And you and I can instead follow Jesus, walk with Jesus, listen to Jesus. So on this Holy Tuesday, let's listen to Jesus, his teachings. Remember who he is. And that way, when Good Friday comes, it changes our life. It changes our heart. You see, the work's already done. If you're going into Good Friday or Easter as if you're celebrating something new, it's not. It's already done. It's already happened. And my challenge here is that you and I would learn how to live in his abundant, free love and grace and walk in it. You see, Jesus never went into a crowd and had people measure up. He never even had them live up to his standards. He just said, follow me. It's a good word. It's a very good word. And I encourage you to find ways in your life to follow Jesus. Make this a new Easter, not of celebrating Jesus hanging on a cross, but celebrating this new desire that we have to follow him, to read the words of Jesus and his life and find living love and joy in them. Make this a new one. Make this a brand new time in your life with this Easter. I hope you have an amazing Holy Tuesday. Tomorrow will be Holy Wednesday. Traditionally, it's called Spy Wednesday. It's when Judas got his 30 pieces of silver to betray Jesus. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I hope you have an amazing day. I hope you're having an amazing Holy Tuesday. It's a good one. God bless you guys. I love you all. And I hope you have an amazing day and that all your needs are met, that you experience his love. God bless.